All right, so let's take a look at question 3 now. Question 3 is a structure question, and it tells me I need to think about the whole of the source. So I'm going to know that I can talk about anything that's in here so far. The text is from the beginning of a novel. Well, that's kind of interesting. It makes me think that we'll be introducing a lot of things, but other than that, I don't really care. How has the writer structured the text to interest me as a reader? Okay, that is the standard question they always ask me. And then I see the bullet points telling me what I could be focusing on, what the writer focuses the attention on at the beginning. Okay, that's good to know. I've also need how and why the writer changes the focus as the source develops, right? And any of the structural features that interest me. So I'm reminded that I need to write about what's happening at the beginning of the source, what the writer is focusing on. I need to write about some changes in focus, like what's happening in the middle and the end. And I need to always say why that focus, why that structure is interesting to me as a reader. So my plan here is going to be beginning, what the writer focuses on, some example, and why that's interesting to me. And then for the middle and the end, I'll also want to say what the writer's focusing on, give an example, and say how that's interesting. I'll also be trying to, in the middle and the end paragraph, link back to the beginning one to show some sort of changes, like how these changes are interesting. Okay, so now I look at this first paragraph in the insert, and I see this. I see that Alice is unscrewing the top of her water bottle, and it's hot. She's thirsty. She drinks it. I see the heat haze shimmering. The sky is blue. There's insects buzzing, the unrelenting chorus in the shade of the dry grass. So, what are my thoughts in this paragraph? Well, I'm going to be thinking, first of all, right now, that Alice is like hardworking. She's in some sort of extreme conditions. It's hot. She's thirsty. And I might wonder, like, why she's here, why she's pushing herself like this. I feel like she's really dedicated right now. So I'm just going to leave my little note for myself there. Now, down here, we're carrying on because the first paragraph, we're kind of introducing Alice and the environment. And here we know more about the environment. So far, I know that, like, in winter, it's covered with snow, and the spring, the flowers are pretty. This is all really interesting, and there's some stuff I could pick up on here. But considering what I was just thinking, that Alice is hardworking in extreme conditions, I'm going to carry on talking about this extreme conditions here. I'm going to think sun flattening the land into submission. This to me feels like the land is violent, dangerous conditions. And I also see this place of secrets, one that is seen too much and concealed too much. Now, I know from the introduction that Alice is on a dig to find out more about the past. And I think when we see this place of secrets, that feels to me like it might be foreshadowing, might be like hinting that in the future Alice is going to find secrets. That's all of my thoughts for the beginning of this. For the beginning of this. Before I go on to carry on writing. I think I'm just going to write up here what I found so far. So I'm going to say what the writer focuses my attention on at the beginning of the source. In the beginning of the text, the writer focuses on producing Alice and the harsh environment in which she is working. Right. So that's my overall point. And now I need some examples of this, just some little bits that would show the greater what I mean by the harsh environment. So we see such details as the heat haze and the dry grass. And anything else about this? Maybe I can put in something about the sun flattening the land at submission, turning the greens to browns. And the into submission. However, Alice continues working through all this. So Alice continues to work in these conditions despite being thirsty. Okay, so there's all my evidence. This is all the things that I learn that prove this point here. Now, I need to say why this is interesting. I've got my focus. I've got my examples. I need to say why it's interesting. And this is interesting because, well, like I was saying up here, the reader will wonder why Alice is pushing herself in such harsh conditions. And might imagine that she is extremely dedicated, but for reasons we don't yet know. Now, I do want to also include this other thing that interests me, this little bit of foreshadowing in there. Additionally, we see that a mountain is a place of secrets, which possibly foreshadows that Alice might soon find something. Okay, so that's what I think about the beginning of this. Now I need to talk about something that's happening later on. So I need to find something interesting, a big change in focus. Now here, Alice is looking at her colleagues down the mountain on the slopes, but I'm not sure if this is super interesting. I see that everyone else has given up. That might be interesting. Because that might show how much more dedicated Alice is. That would be maybe a really nice thing for me to write about. Now, here, we're learning about what they're searching for. Medieval pots and bowls, some arrowheads, and no evidence of the Stone Age village, which is the focus of the excavation. So here we're learning what she's looking for. Stone Age village. This might be something to write about too. But then, just here, I see something really interesting here. So here, Alice is considering going down and joining her friends and colleagues, who we remember are just down there taking a break. They're just resting. But then we see this. She knows if she stops now, she'll lose her momentum. Hopefully, her luck's about to change. Okay, this word change, super important for me because I am looking for changes in the focus, and this might be a bit of a change here too. I also noticed that the writer, with hopefully her luck's about to change, we've got a little bit of a perspective shift there. This sounds like something Alice is saying, not something that the narrator is saying. Then we've got she noticing something glinting beneath a large boulder. Okay, that's really interesting because there's a lot of mystery here. We don't know what the object is, don't know how big it is, and Alice is digging for it all by herself. She's not even asking anybody else. She's trying to get it all by herself. So now see why Alice is dedicated. Let's find this glinting object here, which is almost as if it had been placed there, like hints of magic there. Okay, so now I think I've found some enough interesting things to write about. Let's say, as the text develops, this is a more interesting way to say in the middle of the text. As the text develops, we learn more about why Alice is working so hard in the heat. So now I want to put some evidence here, some quotes in this. Even though the rest of her friends and colleagues is better. There we go. That's how we spell colleagues. Even though the rest of her colleagues are resting down the mountain, Alice carries on because she has found something glinting. It seems almost as if it had been placed there by a giant hand. So this is interesting to me because first of all, we've got this like hint of magic here, like it's placed there by some sort of magic force. So why is this interesting to the reader? The reader will imagine that there might be some sort of magic force at play here. Furthermore, the phrase her luck's about to change. This is an example of a little perspective shift, I think, here. And I think this is hinting to me that something is about to change. It's like foreshadowing this change in luck, foreshadowing development. So there's a perspective change that, again, foreshadows something what Alice might soon find. Something foreshadows Alice's possible discoveries related to this object. So then, as we go on, we find out a little bit more. We find out that Alice knows she's doing wrong. She knows she should fetch someone. So is not following the rules. She's doing that because she's afraid she'll lose out on credit for that. So that to me feels like Alice is being quite naughty. And then you've got this wonderful shift here. So here we're again shifting the narrative perspective. We've got in the days and weeks to come, Alice will look back to this moment. Change the tense to future. And again, this is very strong foreshadowing that something's going to happen because Alice is going to wonder how different things might have been had she made the choice to go and not stay, if she had played by the rules. So Alice is in the future wondering about how much this has changed her life. So that is definitely something I want to pick up on for my final paragraph here. So near the end of the text, we learn that Alice is breaking the rules of the dig. She knows she should fetch somebody. Correct quote there? Oh, someone. Yeah, I gotta get my quote correct. If it's between quotes, it's gotta be completely correct. She knows she should fetch someone. She wants to keep all the credit for herself. However, in a perspective, in a future, let's say a flash forward. That's a better word for that when we're briefly looking at the future. However, in a flash forward, we learn that Alice will look back to this moment and will reflect on her decision to not play by the rules. This strongly suggests to the reader that Alice's decision will have enormous consequences. So now, what I've got here, I've got 3 paragraphs here, quite full, quite long paragraphs, explaining what's going on at the beginning, what's going on in the middle, and what is going on at the end of it. Well, I didn't get to this very last paragraph yet, but I can't cover everything. I just want to cover the beginning and then 1 or 2 places where I see a focus change that really catches my interest. All right, so that's my response there. Hopefully this helps you build yours.